if you can find those moments of like self-assuredness or empowerment or clarity of like, yeah, okay, if that's what you expect our relationship to look like, then I guess it does need to look different. I guess the repercussions of this, while not fun or easy, are maybe where we need to go.
You will suffer major consequences. The peace part, like, it doesn't mean that you won't suffer consequences. Like,
To potentially go get my tarot read, and I've never done that before. And I don't really know how I feel about it, and it kind of makes me nervous. And so you
shut
just
the front door. Shut
I
the front door.
I wish I was recording it. I am not lying. Hey, welcome back. We're Not For Everyone. I'm Jess, and that's Baby Teeth Winkler. And let me tell you why that is your new nickname, according to my boyfriend, Ryan.
Oh, no.
The other day, he was like, "How's Baby Teeth?" And I was like,
What?
"What the?" I was like, I'm sorry, who are you referring to that has like,
I
I thought he
I
meant
love
literal baby teeth, like small teeth, a friend with a small smile or something. Uh,
I love the attitude of hard launching a nickname with
yeah.
no context and like
Yeah.
yeah.
The thing that's even funnier about it with him is that he's one of those people that like, he's always told me that he gets weird about nicknames because he used to get nicknames when he was a kid that like he didn't feel a part of, like unless you're a part of the
Oh.
nickname forming process, it could be like kind of teasing or bullying or whatever.
Well, newsflash, I haven't been a part of the fucking baby teeth. What the
Well,
fuck
yeah,
is
I
that?
was like, I think you just broke your own rule. It had to do with what you posted on Instagram this week about how you were going to the dentist and then found out that you had like child's dental insurance and then found out you had no dental insurance. So he just decided that makes you baby teeth.
Baby teeth. That's great. Oh, yeah. I had a hard time at the dentist this week. Hard time with insurance. It was so ridiculous. And then just like whatever. Obviously, everybody knows insurance sucks and sucks more and more every day. We don't have to talk about that. But at first, when you said baby teeth, I there was like a small uproar on my channel relative to my channel, aka like it didn't matter at all and nobody cares. But
But to you, it
but to
was
me,
an uproar.
it was a big deal when I posted a vlog one time and was just like showing random things in my home, and I was about to do an integration like for a sponsor about it. I was about to do like a sponsorship ad, and I was sitting in my bedroom and I picked up this little tiny um Venetian painted box, tiny little box, like 1 inch by 1 inch box. And
Yeah.
I like shook it at the camera and it rattled. I just like
Mm.
rattled at the camera and I was like, guess what's in here?
Baby
And I opened it
teeth.
up and it is an entire mouthful of my baby teeth.
Mouthful.
Mouthful. I saved all of them. And then I just went directly into the sponsorship. And people were like, wait.
Ritual vitamins are great for your dental health.
That was exactly what the sponsor
No
was,
stop.
because Ritual's really chill, and I knew they would just let me do whatever. Some brands do ask me. They're like, please don't act like yourself. But
Oh my God.
Ritual's very chill.
So
Yeah,
the
I
baby teeth
saved
nickname has multiple, like it fits
totally. It
basically.
fits.
Maybe
Also,
he's
some
a
people
watcher
tell
of your
me
YouTube and he just has never told me.
a secret watcher. I would
Yeah.
love that. Ryan and I have still never spoken, which is what's so crazy.
Oh my God, you haven't? I feel like one time he like
No.
chimed in on a voice note that I was leaving you, and that was all
Oh,
we've given you.
maybe.
You've
Yeah,
heard
yeah, yeah.
recordings of his voice, yeah.
Yeah, just echoes of the past. Um,
Oh, I thought
you
you were
didn't save your
going
baby
into a
teeth?
story. Um,
No.
awkward silence.
It's early in the morning. It's early in the morning, and Jess and I are both pissed.
Sports girls. We're sports girls. Let's
Sports
tell them
girls.
why. Let's tell them why.
Tell
You're
them
wearing a
why.
college sweatshirt. I'm wearing a Ravens sweatshirt because we're sports girls. We were going to record yesterday, and that really we were going to record Friday. And then I had a crazy day at work, and I was like, yo, baby doll, can we record Saturday? Yes, no problem. Turns out on Saturday, Caroline's like, I have to go watch sports.
I cannot be, the longer I try to be on top of my schedule, the harder I try to be on top of it, the worse it's getting. I I had a brunch or a dinner or something with our editor producer Abby Newhouse this week, and I went and I booked the reservation. This is a problem I have where I just like get the week wrong. I get the year wrong for weddings I'm supposed to attend. I get the day wrong, get the time wrong. I show up to the airport a day after my flight. And I went and I booked this reservation, and then I was looking at it later. It was supposed to be a Sunday brunch, and then I was looking at it. I was like, "Oh, that's Monday. Okay, I booked it for Monday. Okay, okay, okay. Good thing I caught it. Good thing I caught it."
Right.
I went back. I rebooked it. I was like, "We're making this for Sunday. We're making this for Sunday." Booked it a second time. Sunday rolls around. Abby texts me. She says, "Hey, this is for Monday. We might need to rebook this." I went back a second time to fix it, just specifically to fix that, and I still got it on the wrong day.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
I don't know what it is.
Your
I don't
poor
know what it is.
brain.
I don't know what it is,
You're trying
but
your best.
I'm trying so hard, and it's not a joke. It's not a silly joke. It is silly,
I know
but
you're trying really hard,
I'm genuinely trying, and I did the same thing yesterday. I messed up my schedule and I had to cancel our recording.
but it was because you were going to a pregame and you
Yeah,
being
for a sports game,
not a
for a
sports
sports game.
girl, you were like, oh, pregame, like if the game's at 7, we start at like 5. But that is not
Yeah.
how it works in the world of sports, my doll. We're doing this in the morning because I have to go get to the Ravens bar in Chicago at 11 a.m. to
That is
save a table
insanity. That is
because I get
insanity.
my 10 people group a table for the
Oh my
2 o'clock
God.
game. Otherwise,
And
we will have.
you're the designated person to get the table.
I volunteered myself with Kai and one of our other friends, Corey,
Cute.
because we were like, whatever, we'll go and like get lunch and play cards, like play a game
Yeah.
and pass the time at the bar until it happens. But yeah, it's a whole day
That's
affair
cute as
just to
hell.
watch a game, just to watch Taylor Swift be in Baltimore, you know?
Oh, what was I gonna say? Ooh, what time will people come?
I think they will just trickle in between 11 and 2.
Okay.
Like Ryan's coming at 1, but he has to do some work stuff before then. Um, yeah, one of my other friends is like on call because she's a nurse, so she's coming closer to the game. So it just depending on people's schedules, they're rolling in. But I think everyone will be there by 2, ready for the game,
And the game
championship
is
before
what
the Super
time?
Bowl.
Game is what
It's at
time?
2. It's at 2
Okay,
Central.
okay, okay. I
Yeah.
thought you were gonna say it was got like 6 p.m., which would
No, no,
not
no, no.
surprise me.
It's an afternoon thing. Yeah. Also, it's kind of nice Central Time. Like games are earlier here. They're not actually earlier. It's like happening at the same time. You know how time zones work. It's happening
Yeah,
at the
I'm
same
a
time.
I heard about time zones before. You haven't like skipped ahead in the time continuum.
But
Yeah.
like for example, the Super Bowl, I grew up on the East Coast. I always knew that the Super Bowl was a 6:30 start time, but in Chicago, it's a 5:30 start time, meaning if you go to a Super Bowl party, you get done at like 9:30 or 10 instead of 10:30 or 11 and everything is better for you. That's
I'm
I'm ahead of the curve.
losing I'm losing my mind at where and how and why you've stored this information in your brain.
I like football. I am a sports girl. I
I
like
didn't know
the
that.
NFL. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I'm wearing a Ravens sweatshirt. I'm a big Ravens fan. Um, I
Big
think it
Ravens.
started, yeah, I think it started in college because we grew up in the DC area. At the time, the team was called the Redskins. Now it's called the Commanders.
Terrible
And
name.
terrible name,
And
terrible team.
I'm not saying we should have kept terrible team. I'm not saying we should have kept Redskins, but in the intermediate, they called the team the Washington football team as a
It worked.
placeholder, and that was fucking dope.
I liked
Why
it.
didn't we think it was definitely better than the Commander, the Washington football team? That is so cool. That's kind of in the line of like the really good podcast or something, you know?
Yes,
Like
it
that's a fun
totally
name.
is. I
That's the
totally agree.
Washington football
Washington,
team.
I still call them Washington. I just decide I call
Yeah.
every other team by their name and I call Washington Washington.
I try not to refer to
Right.
football.
But yeah, we grew up with that team and they were never very good. And my parents are also not from America. So like my dad watches football, but it's
That's
not
even
like a
more
big,
surprising. Yeah.
yeah, it's not like a big part of our family culture. They didn't go to like state schools in the US where they had football teams and whatever. And then I went to Hopkins, also didn't have an impressive football team, but the Ravens were popping off at the time in Baltimore. And my best friend
Okay.
Kai is a huge Ravens fan. She's from Baltimore. So I just
Mm,
became part of the flock, as we call
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And my senior year of college, the Ravens won the Super Bowl. And we
Oh my
went running through the
God.
streets of
It's a
Baltimore.
Cinderella story.
Yeah. And
Ugh.
Beyonce performed at that Super Bowl. So it was like for me.
She heard that you were graduating.
She did. She wanted to send me off.
Oh
So
no.
anyway, yeah. So this team kind of like holds a special place in my heart, but I don't like care in the way that I will be like deeply upset if we don't win, but I like to participate and like it's a social thing to do.
Yeah,
And so that's what I'm in it for. And the team, the color is purple, and you know that works for me. So
that's so true. Okay, great.
yeah.
That sounds great. No
Mm.
additions, no complaints.
But back to the scheduling issues you've been having. I feel
Yeah,
like
it's really out of control.
I have been I'm I don't know if I have the exact same problem, but I think that there's overlap with the problem that I have, which is I've just been over scheduling myself way too much. And like pretty much every day, things will take longer than I think they're going to take. And then I have to push recording the podcast, push dinner with a friend, push like whatever I had planned because I'm like working late or not even only because of work, just everything takes longer. Like doing promo for the podcast in my head, I'm always like, oh, I'll just do it in an hour and it'll be done. And it takes me
No
like
way,
three
dog.
hours.
No way,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I still haven't learned that. And so I am in this perpetual, in January, I've been in this perpetual state of like shifting blocks on my calendar to the next day
Oh.
and the next day and the next day, whether it's just something for me or something with other people. And it's driving me crazy. Like,
Yeah, because if you're doing that, that also means you're not getting any like sanity time in
not
there.
very much. Well, yesterday
Can't
I
do that.
bailed
Can't do
on
that very long.
something to have sanity time.
Love
And
it. Obsessed with it. Oh, the
yeah.
best feeling. Actually, no, the best feeling is when you're doing your best to uphold the obligation, but then whoever you're meeting bails on you and they're
Oh
like, "Oh
my
my
God.
God, I'm so sorry." And I'm always like, I'm always a little withholding. I'm like, "Oh, that's okay.
I'm
You
the
owe
opposite.
me. You owe me. I'm
I'm
gonna
like,
bail on you now."
I know. I'm like, don't apologize. I usually go really extreme in the like,
I know,
don't
I'm
ever
kidding. I'm
apologize
joking.
to me for having
Yeah.
to bail on plans. Like, I didn't even want to see you. And
I didn't
that's
even
kind
want
of
to
the angle that I
see.
take.
Super defensive. I hate you. Yeah, I don't actually do that, but I am always so delighted. I don't ever want to let on how delighted I am, but I'm
That's fair.
always delighted. I'm always delighted.
It's a gift. So I guess that's what I've been gifting people this week. I keep pushing things. Maybe they're actually happy, but I feel so much guilt. I think it's also because like I was in a depressive slump a couple weeks ago. And then I was like, okay, let me get some plans on the calendar to look forward to. But I've been
Yeah.
working so much that I haven't been able to like uphold those plans. And then I get back into the self hatred of like, now I'm just working and I'm bailing on my friends.
Baby.
You know,
Baby.
I can
Yeah,
laugh
it's
about it. I'm like not in the slump I was where I can look at it and think it's funny, but that's the cycle of adulthood, I think.
yeah, I really agree. I get very stressed out if I look at my schedule. I just looked at my schedule for the coming week and I saw I have one evening with nothing planned, and that's pushing. That makes me not happy. That
Mm-hmm.
means I'm going to be stressed out this week.
Mm-hmm.
Um I feel like having like maybe 3 events after work in a week is the ideal balance for me.
I think mine is like two. I mean,
But
it
you're doing
depends on
so
what you,
much.
yeah, it depends on what you consider an event. But
Anything that's not me in the dark
okay,
alone.
like Justin coming over to hang out, is that does that count? Probably not.
No, that counts as like because he's like my home. So
Right.
that don't feel like nutting. That feels like nothing to me. But no, it doesn't feel the same as like a social obligation,
Yeah.
honestly.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because if you include, yeah. So aside from that sort of thing, yeah, I think it's two things a week for me, but it probably is because a lot of my like work, because I have two jobs basically. I think that's the reason. And Abby's taking her little time off right now, which I love for her, but I'm like desperate for her to come back because um it's just like an additional few hours a week for us that we don't usually have on our plates. Um yeah. I think I'm doing too much.
What do you think you should realistically cut back on or could realistically cut back on?
I freelance for a friend of mine, but like it is so little. It's like 2 hours a month. And I look
That
forward
stuff
to
adds
it.
up.
I
Oh.
know. But the thing is, I look forward to it because I go to her like design studio in my neighborhood and like it's a cute space. And we chat about like marketing stuff and I like help her ideate on some things she's working on for her business. And so like I kind of like it, but it is an extra thing that I do have to think more
But
about. And
does it
I
But
did
does it
kind of tell her
energize
that.
you? Does it energize you? Because that is different. If you're like, it's
Yeah.
2 hours, only 2 hours a month, but I fucking dread it, and I'm spending weeks of the month dreading it.
Yeah,
That's where it's
no.
cutting out. That's where it's cutting out because that's going to drain everything else you do. But if it's 2 hours a month and it's not super necessary and it's not a social thing and it's not a direct work thing, but it delights you and it lifts you up, then I'd
Yeah,
say worth keeping. You know?
I agree. It does do that. I actually think, and it's like really hard for me to say this. I think the thing that is like I'm dreading lately is my stand-up class that I'm taking.
Yeah,
And like that was
I get it.
supposed to be the thing that was like really fun in the winter months, like something to look forward to, get out of the house, hang out with new people, do comedy. And I am just dreading it. I always feel behind because I don't have time to like really write jokes before the class. And then we get to class and we have to perform a couple minutes of material, just like workshop it for everybody. And I'm like, I always feel behind. I always feel not good enough because I don't have the time to like think about it outside of class really. And yeah,
And that's
I've
a
been
fun
dreading it.
place. I think that's a really like rife opportunity to compound the negativity because you're like, not only do I not have time for this, but it's the thing I really wanted to have time for. And now
Yeah,
I'm hating myself extra for not doing this the way that I'd wanted to. At least that's how I think that's when it compounds for me.
exactly. You sent me something on Instagram that was like a clip from a different podcast, I think, and it was these two women, and I wish I could reference who they were, but talking about how like you can
Oh, it was a
change your
designer.
mind
It was a
basically.
design it was a designer I worked for in Ohio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. And she had a corporate career, maybe in marketing. It sounded very similar to you. She had a really robust corporate career. She was really good at it. She hated every single day. She has like a family, 4 children. She started her own interior design business on the side, built it in tandem to her corporate job, would run to clients' meetings on her lunch break, worked it up for years, and then eventually strategized how she could get out of her corporate career and went full time into
hell yeah.
design. I did some like remote, I did some projects for her as like her remote designer for remote projects for a little while. And
Cool.
she's amazing, but mostly I just loved, she was really articulate about like doing that transition.
Yeah,
Reinventing yourself.
reinventing yourself totally, which like I talk about too and am in the process of trying to do. And so I have an appreciation for the fact that like you don't have to stay the same thing that you were. You don't, like you can always reinvent, you can always change and pivot. So I totally am on board with that. But I think I've been applying it, like I've been really thinking about that clip and I've been applying it to my stand-up thing more than
Mm,
anything because actually
mm,
like my day job, while the long vision is like to get out of it and be able to do this stuff full time, I'm not, I don't dread it really most of the time. Like I'm good at it. Um, it's a lot of work. So I think that part is hard. Like I've gained more responsibility. So I have to spend more and more time on it. And that's frustrating me lately. But the work itself is like very natural to me. And it's not actually hard work, it's just a lot of it. And I like the people and like I don't know, that satisfies a part of my brain because I've been a corporate person for a long time. And then like this obviously satisfies a big like fulfillment need for me. um the stand up thing I thought was going to satisfy another like gap because in the past when I've done stand up I've like loved it and felt like this is like the best feeling ever. And I just don't know if I feel that way anymore. And it's like really
mm,
hard to grapple with because it
mm.
used to be like that shiny thing on a pedestal. And now I'm just kind of like, I don't know, like I think I'm funnier doing this, or this comes more naturally to me. And so I'm able to be funnier, just be myself. And if it's funny, great. Um, and so I think but I don't know, but it's been this thing that I like idealize. And so to decide that I'm not really going to try doing it anymore, or that it doesn't hold like value to me and how I view myself anymore, is like harder than it has been in the past with like corporate career or whatever, because it's
Yeah.
this shiny distant like prize. I've always thought of it that way, you know?
Totally. I think that's a bit how I felt about acting. And one of the many, many, many reasons that it felt really hard for me to walk away from acting, because on some hand, like in some way, it's quitting. And maybe it's quitting stand up because you have other goals. You don't, you're not enjoying it. Like it's not
Yeah.
what you're focused on. Like really good reasons to quit it, but it's still really hard, I think, to quit something that was once your goal. I think it's really easy to um make it mean all these negative things about, well, what does it mean about me? Well, is it a failure? Well, what will other people think? Well, other people knew I wanted to do that thing, or like I
Mm-hmm.
talked a lot about it, or I put all that time into it. What does it mean if I like now pivot? But I really it was like such a hard decision for me. Um, but I think the bigger pitfall is sticking with something just cause. Sticking with something just because you once decided you wanted it. Like if you still want it and it's really hard, then that's a great thing to stick with. If you don't even want it anymore,
I
I think
know.
it's so important to be like, what is it? Is it an ego blow that makes it hard to step away? Is it like a thing about self doubt? Is it that you don't trust yourself? Is it that you don't trust what other people will think? Um,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the answer is for you, but I get it.
Yeah. It, yeah. That's the first time I've like said it out loud,
I
but
can
I've been
tell.
having these thoughts, you know?
Yeah.
So I do need to like process it more and get to the root and like what that is for me, what the hang up is, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it's a lot of the things you described.
Totally.
And
I relate.
yeah, and that's a really weird thing to let go of for me. I don't know why. It's
Yeah,
like,
it's not something your parents wanted you to do.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
not something your friends expected of you. It's something you chose and maybe
Literally no
tied
one
your
else was doing it, cared
no one
for
gives
me
a
to do
fuck.
it. No one cares.
But you tied some of your purpose and some of your identity to it. And that's like the hardest thing to step away from then. I think anything that's tied into identity
Mm-hmm.
gets really hard, which is why I love a lot of, I don't know, I really connect with a lot of philosophies from Zen Buddhism, um, which like one giant aspect of that is this notion that there is no self. You know, when people, we all do this, I do this, say, well, I'm a funny person. I'm ambitious. I'm um will do anything for my family. I'm a corporate achiever. I'm anxious. Any of these like are reasonable sentences, we might all say, but they're all like fixing your identity to a thing, fixing your identity to your anxiety, fixing your identity to your career, fixing your identity to a characteristic like ambition that maybe you have ambition in some areas and maybe there's other areas where it's like really important for you not to have ambition, but like we're all so much more complicated than any one of these static fixed identities. It's like I have anxiety and anxiety shows up in certain areas, or I can be very ambitious about XYZ and it doesn't have to affect everything. Or like sometimes I sacrifice a lot for my family, and sometimes I make really important decisions to step away. But I think as soon as you like untangle the identity part of those characteristics, then you give yourself so many more options as a person. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally does. It totally does.
It's like a big thing I've had to struggle with. Like there isn't a static self. you have a bunch of selves that show up
Yeah,
differently in different areas on different days, and it'll change through your life.
totally. And it's like I logically agree with that. And then I just think about in practice, like how many times do I say when I'm down or stressed or whatever, like I don't feel like myself. And
Yeah.
Ryan's actually really good at reminding me, like, you are yourself. This is a part of you, like
Yeah.
you can look many different ways. And I'm always like, yeah, but you know what I mean. And it's
Not the
like,
part of myself that shines and is more fun,
right, not
maybe.
the part of
Yeah.
myself that is my favorite part of myself, or not the part of
Yeah.
myself that, like, when I meet a new person, I would lead with, or
Yeah.
that
Totally.
it's kind of ego centric, and it's kind of about
It's
get
the part that
other
feels
people
good.
liking you, but yeah, it
It's
also
the part that
feels
feels
good.
good. Totally.
Right. Um that kind of feels like a segue to our conversation at the end of last episode, because I've been thinking a lot
Y'all.
about it, and I know you've been
Y'all.
thinking a lot about it.
Yeah.
What's the
Okay.
quote? Peace is letting
Yes.
people be wrong about you.
Yeah. So last episode, and I always want to give a little recap because we've realized that people listen to the episodes out of order. So
Yeah.
this is, if the recap's ever redundant to you, I apologize. I kiss you on the lips. But to everybody else, in our previous episode, um, we kind of capped it off. I can't take credit for this wisdom at all. It was just an Instagram reel that hit me in the chest. Um, where this guy shared one little nugget of wisdom, which is that peace is letting people be wrong about you. And there's like, I just knew the way it hit me that, and based on like DMs and comments we read from our listeners, like I know how much this could hit in the chest. Basically, all of this young 20s, 30s listener population,
And it
and
did.
beyond that. And it did, yeah. And we wanted to kind of continue. Do you want to share your ruminations, or do you want me to elaborate based on what I take
Well,
from that?
I think the main part that I want to talk about more, and I don't have a conclusion about this, but I kind of want to like pose the question to you and have a conversation about it, is what I started to bring up at the end of the episode of like, okay, I agree. Like that makes a lot of sense to me. Peace is letting people be wrong about you. Like I can imagine how peaceful that must feel. I understand and agree with a lot of philosophy around like, separating your value from what other people think, and the fact that there is no self, and all of these ideas, like, yes. And also when I think about like putting it into practice, like breaking that down and then applying it to my life, I'm like, but that doesn't feel true, because like you alluded to, like, well, it matters sometimes because your boss pays you and you need to make a living to exist in this world. And so that kind of matters. And then you start going through different um parts of your life and thinking, well, it does matter because it's how I survive, whether it's like financially or socially surviving. Feeling loved and accepted and connection is like such a big part of the human existence. So it's like I agree, and also it feels so impossible because of the way that we've like constructed our society, maybe. Yeah, and that's the thing I've just been like thinking about and trying to make sense of over the week, but I've not gotten anywhere. I have more
Yeah.
questions than answers, basically.
No, you're right. All right, I got things to say.
Hmm.
I think we got to talk about this with specific examples. And I have a few, but first of all, I will say I think work wise, professional wise is so completely different. I think the phrase still applies, but like in a different way. But the biggest clarification to me, this idea references like not just someone who's wrong about you, but someone who's committed to being wrong about you.
Mm,
Somebody who is committed to clinging to a narrative about you that you're like, that is not who I am. That is not how I am. What, and like, when
okay.
somebody's just wrong about you, could be your sister, could be your friend, could be your boyfriend, could be your employer, like, of course, you go and try to correct it. And a lot like, yeah, you should. You should try to correct it. Of course, that's what everyone's going to do. That's what I do. And And oftentimes, like, it just takes a conversation. It just takes communicating. That's what communicating is basically like, you
Yeah.
talk about communication in a relationship. It's like we've both, without meaning to, written narratives about what we think is happening or what we think the other's doing or how we think they're operating. And then we have to communicate to try and like show them, actually, no, this is who I am. Yeah, makes sense. You do that everywhere. But sometimes you will encounter a friend, a coworker, sometimes it's your partner who is committed to a different narrative about you. And no matter how much you try so hard, work so hard to show them who you are, they are committed to being wrong about you. I was in a relationship, I can give a million examples. One, I was in a relationship where my partner was committed to the idea that I wanted to be with other people, that I didn't want to be with him, that I was going to cheat on him, or I was always looking elsewhere. Um, years of commitment to this person, the deepest kinds of commitment, and nothing could change this narrative. Ultimately, that narrative always came back somehow. And um and I'll say this, like when someone's committed to being wrong about you, you will suffer major consequences. The peace part, like it doesn't mean that you won't suffer consequences. Like when someone's committed to being wrong about you, it probably means you can't have an intimate relationship with them, whether it's a
Mm-hmm.
friend or family or boyfriend. If an employer is committed to being wrong about you, it probably means you're not getting promoted or you can't stay working there. If a friend is committed to being wrong about you, it probably means your relationship is gonna dwindle. Um, but in addition, on the other hand, when someone's committed to being wrong about you, and you work really, really, really hard to no end to try to correct them, you suffer consequences for that too. Both of them come with consequences. And when someone's committed to being wrong about you and you work so hard to try to correct them in like this futile, Sisyphean effort where the rock always keeps rolling down the hill and you can never make progress and you just expend energy and you're spending all this time like working on a problem that won't change when you could be like nourishing relationships with people who see you, love you, want to learn about you, want to learn how they're wrong about you, want to understand you better. You
Mm.
waste time in the one place and you lose time in these other healthy places. Like both mean you will suffer consequences, whether you let people be wrong about you or whether you try to correct them. You will suffer both ways. But one of them comes with peace as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like to me, uh, we have a listener what to do that I think is a good example. Do you
Sure.
want to do this?
Sure.
Okay, cool.
That made a lot more sense, by the way, already.
Yeah.
Like it's
Okay.
I like that you framed it around like this applies mostly to the people who are committed to being wrong about you, because
Totally.
that was the question I had in my
Oh,
head of like,
totally.
but human existence is getting to know each other and learning and improving and
Yeah.
like fitting ourselves together or not. And so it's
Yes.
mostly like in those places where it's just not working and they're still not getting you, and like
Yeah.
it's better to let that go rather than keep forcing it, basically. Like that's something I really believe. I think it ties in. So anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
that
And I
helps.
think I think like when we say it on paper, everyone would be like, "Yeah, totally."
Yeah.
But it's like the hardest thing. I'm
Yeah.
saying it right now like I confidently live this. No, I fucking don't. Like I can intellectualize it, but I really struggle with this. That's why it hit me so hard because I was like, this is how I'm fucking up, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Um, but yeah, okay, let's do an example because somebody wrote
Yeah.
in with a what to do that I felt like, oh, this actually applies. Okay. Let me find this. Hold on. Um, cool. Somebody DM'd us. What to do? My former boss from a job I left 6 months ago won't stop inviting me for drinks. She is a very nice person, but I am honestly still recovering from how toxic that job was. In parentheses, it was a nonprofit with no boundaries or pay, and pay that didn't cover basic needs. And no matter how many times I politely decline, the invites keep coming. Help. You guys always have the best advice. Okay, I don't know about the last part, but we'll try. So my thoughts on this is like, okay, we don't know the exact dynamics of the relationship with her ex-boss, who like, it's kind of complicated because like either you guys are really really tight, I would say. Either you're super tight, doesn't sound like it, but either you're super tight, and in that case there's usually space to say something honest about like, I need a little space for XYZ reason. I would love to meet up. Name a month later on. There's room for that in the more intimate relationships. You can communicate and say hard things that are true. It's uncomfortable, but there's space for it. Or this is someone that you only feel tempted to meet up with them because you need to stay on their good side for career reasons. Very possible. In that case, I think the rules are very different. You do things all the time. You go to networking events all the time. You go to job interviews all the time. That's like, it's not for fun. It's because you're going to do it for your career. And you weigh the pros and cons and you decide if it's worth it. That's not a social event. You're not doing it to be nice to her. You're doing it for professional reasons. I think that's separate. What it sounds like this is, it sounds like you're not tempted for professional reasons, really. It sounds like she's not a BFF. It sounds like she's just like a nice person. And what if you like kind of say no to her? I think if this was me, I would be like, well, I don't want her to think I'm a bitch. I don't want her to think I'm not nice or not friendly, or I don't want her to think I'm XYZ. Um, and it's not a close enough relationship that I would be able to explain to her why I need space from this toxic job. She might not even understand that it was toxic to me. She was the boss. Maybe she was running the toxicity by accident. Like, it doesn't feel like there's space for me to explain why I need this space. Um, but I also really don't want her to have this wrong narrative about me. Sounds like she's a nice person. She's not a malevolent person. She's not trying to get you wrong. But I think for so many people, that would be the fear, is like, well, what if they think I'm XYZ? Other than that, no consequences. Other than that, there's no consequences to getting out of it. You can put it off. You can stop responding to texts. If someone's really not getting the fucking message, the good news about turning down someone who is not getting the fucking message is that they don't get the fucking message. They apparently don't read social cues, so you're less likely to actually offend them. Like, if they don't take
That's so true.
if they can't receive a reasonable social cue, you
They're
can be a little
oblivious.
more, they're oblivious. So it doesn't fucking matter at that point. Like, if there are no real consequences, you don't have to stay in touch for networking reasons. She's not your sister-in-law. She's not actually a best friend. Like, what is the actual risk to, like, you've tried to politely turn it down. You've tried politely many times. And then maybe eventually she's given you no option but to kind of blow her off. So what? What are the consequences? Maybe that she'll think something negative of you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So what does that look like? Are you saying write a more direct message, and like what would that actually say? How would you
I
write
don't
that?
I don't know
Or
that I
just
would.
like stop answering
I
completely,
Yeah.
or yeah.
I don't know if it's someone that you have this kind of like medium. I don't think there's always space. Personally, like, realistically, no. I
Yeah.
don't think
I
in
wouldn't
like this
either.
like medium acquaintance level, you were my boss. It's weird. You don't seem to fucking get the dynamic. No, I don't think I would give them a really brutally honest, direct text. That doesn't seem realistically what most people do. I think if I politely turned it down a bunch of times and this person keeps texting, it's okay to just not respond to the
Yeah.
text.
Yeah.
Or like, it doesn't have to be that you never ever ever respond to a text. Maybe like, this this person sounds like they'll text you like 3 times in a row. Maybe the third time, if you're feeling bad, you can be like, "Oh, I can't make it this time. How are you doing?" You can like,
Right.
you can still treat, there is a middle ground where you can like talk to them a little every once in a while. I think in my head, I'm always like, either I have to respond every time or I can never respond. It's like, with people who are oblivious with texting, you could just respond sometimes. And that's kind of what they need. Like, when you give them a response every single time, they just keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah,
And
that's
maybe,
exactly what I would do.
kick it down the road a few months, and maybe you will feel different in a few months, or in a few months it'll kind of fade away. I don't know if that's the world's most enlightened advice, but I do think that's the realistic advice that
Hmm.
has worked for me.
Yeah, 100%. I think kicking it down the road, I try not to do that less and less. I try to do that less and less, not to
Okay.
do it more and more. Um, because okay, I think that this person's advice is hit or miss, but I was watching something that Tinks, the
I knew it was going to be
influencer,
Tinks. I knew it.
put on Instagram or something a while ago. Like this was maybe a year ago, but it stuck with me. And I don't think I fully agree, but I apply it when necessary, where she was basically like, if you get invited to something or somebody asks you to do something and it doesn't feel exciting, like you wouldn't want to go that night, then it's a no. Like even if
But
it's
that's a
2 weeks
no for
from
me.
now.
But that's a no for me every single day of my life then. Even with my best friend. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding.
Okay, that's
I
not how I
disagree.
feel. I feel
Oh,
well,
okay.
I disagree with I think I disagree with it. I think it's too I don't think it's meant to be taken too literally,
Okay.
but or at least I don't take it too literally, but the thing that it reminds me to check myself on is like if I kick the can on this, do I really want to go 2 months from now? Like I think I'm kicking the can because I never want to go, not because in two
Yeah.
months I actually will want to. And so I think
Yeah.
that's really how I translate it is like being honest with myself about am I just kicking the can to like appease this person basically and not burn a bridge, but like really I'm not going to want to go. And in that case, like I'd rather not kick the can. I'd rather either be direct or just like do the ghosting thing, depending on what the
Yeah.
relationship is. Um, yeah, versus like setting future Jess up for having to do this again in 3 months. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Having to navigate
Okay.
it again and again and
So
again.
what I'm thinking, I do think that's a good thing to check in with. You're right. I see what you get from that and I
Yeah.
agree. I think that the adjustment for me is that like it is also okay to sometimes do things that you don't aren't that aren't just like 100% indulgent for you.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, true.
I have like there are plenty of relationships I upkeep not because it fucking fuels me necessarily, but I do care about that person. And maybe I don't want to see them every week or every month, but like I do feel something for them. And there is a little bit of like emotional obligation. For whatever reason, there are a million different versions of this. But like, my ex violin teacher, she's elderly, she has dementia, she's not like completely demented, but it's not pleasant. It's just I sit there and I absorb a monologue, but like she's a sweet person. I care about her. It would feel worse to drop it all together. And like that's a little more extreme, obviously, because she's kind of older and has
Yeah.
dementia. But there's also other versions of that, maybe like a sort of mentor figure you had, or a friend who like they're a good person, but they're not going to be a best friend. And I've been working on finding space for these kind of in between relationships. I have tenderness for them. They haven't done anything wrong. I do enjoy it if I see them once every like 3, 4 months. And
Hmm.
if they're open to that, then I will uphold it. To me, it has helped to like sometimes for those things, it helps to kick it down the road.
Yeah.
But I also probably do it too much and could also be more direct.
Mm.
I think you're right.
Yeah, I think like a lot of this whole conversation comes down to like the clarity or lack of clarity that you have about that relationship. Like
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you're not really sure yet where they fall in your prioritization of them, in your enjoyment of them, in your wanting to dedicate time and energy to them, in like whether you need them a little bit because of career stuff, maybe whether you want them because you actually enjoy them as a person. Like if you aren't really sure where they fall yet, it's a lot harder to determine like should I say yes to this, should I kick it down the road, should I never see that person again, versus if it's clearer like your old violin teacher, it's like that even though that is a relationship that is like a distant one and you only maybe see her once a year, once or two times a year or whatever, you're clear on it. And so it's easy in that case to kick the can because like you just know that's what I do with my violin teacher. But
Yeah.
I guess there's other relationships where you're like, I don't know, I've been in this forever. Like, I think that's what
Yeah.
I'm reacting to is I have
Yes.
some
Oh
like
yeah.
remote friendships, kind of like friend of friend of friend who
Yeah.
reach out repeatedly to hang out one on one. And it's the type of person where, like, if I see you at a party, I'm going to be happy to chat and say hi and catch up, but I don't really need to give one on one time to you. Like, I have a lot of people that I give one on one time to ahead of
That's
you.
reality. Yeah.
And I'm kind of confused why you don't really know that about our
Yeah.
relationship by this point. But you keep
Mhm.
reaching out and I keep kicking the can. And at some point, I have to look at myself in the mirror and be like, Jessica, you keep kicking the can and you never want to like open the can. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like just stop responding or just be direct or whatever it is for that relationship. I get a lot of stress from continually kicking the can in those
I
types of
see what you mean.
situations. Yeah.
No, I agree. That's a tough one when somebody is being, I guess they're being oblivious. And I think like I feel mean saying it, but it is a reality that, like, in a romantic relationship, it can't be just one person wants to date the other. You both have to want to date the other. And it
Yeah.
is actually the fucking same in friendships. You
Yeah.
have to both want to be friends. And it feels, I don't know, it makes me feel like a terrible person to not be interested in something because I don't have time for it, but it is fucking reality for everybody.
Yeah.
And that is a frustrating situation. I mean, I can empathize with it because, I've been the lonely person. I've been the person who needs a friend desperately, but I also feel like I took the hint when people weren't available.
Right.
So I do agree with that. I'm gonna
Right.
say I think the third version that's extremely complicated. The third example probably is when, like, I think someone commented on our Instagram video of this, like, well, what if the person who's wrong, committed to being wrong about you, is like your mom?
Mm-hmm.
What if it's your sister? What if it's your best friend? What if it's your boyfriend? And that happens all the time. I'm dealing with
Yeah.
that right now. Someone I'm extremely, extremely close to, um, is very committed to having this narrative about me that I am like not seeing them because I'm spending all my time with my new boyfriend because I'm
Mm-hmm.
just obsessed with my new boyfriend and that's why I'm not seeing them and blah 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 blah. Which is a very upsetting narrative to me because I spend a lot of conscious time and effort making sure I'm keeping up with all my friends, all my family. I'm a 32-year-old woman, and at least once a week, I'm having a dinner date or something with my parents, like every single week, seeing my siblings, checking in on them, seeing my friends. So it's a very upsetting narrative to me, very upsetting and very inaccurate and feels very unfair. And I have multiple times directly spoken to them, written an email, put it in written form, had a phone call, talked in person, saying, hey, I'm seeing all the people. The only person I'm not seeing is you because you seem unavailable. Because when I see you, every time you seem really angry. Every
Mm-hmm.
time you seem I've asked you what's going on and it's super hurtful. I can't understand where this like mean edge is coming from. I'm seeing all the people. Do we need to talk about this? What's going on with you? Like, this is deteriorating our relationship. I've had the direct conversations and it's not getting me anywhere. And no matter what I do, this narrative persists. And I don't know why. For some reason, it helps them feel better about
Mm-hmm.
something they're going through. For some reason, it helps them justify their own feelings or their own actions or their own anger. I don't fucking know. I've tried to ask and I can't get fucking through. And it means that this person I'm very close to and love so much, it means we have a lot less of a relationship now. There are serious consequences. If it was my mom, a parent who thinks you're fucking up your life by pursuing a career they don't want, they are committed to being wrong about you, like that might mean you don't get to talk to them about a huge part of your life then. I'm not
Yep.
saying like it's all peaceful and the relationship stays the same. Like they have done things to
Yep.
drastically alter the relationship. Yeah, there are real consequences. And I could fucking kill myself bending over backwards trying to constantly correct this thing that is they think is wrong about me.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, this hits really close to home for me because I've definitely dealt with this with family and my parents specifically. Um, and I think I had this realization once in therapy, and to be clear, I still don't adhere 100% of the time to the realization and to like the path that this realization would have put me on. Like I'm bouncing back and forth all the time because it's really confusing when it's
Totally.
apparent. Um,
Yeah.
but I did have the realization at one point of like I was kind of disagreeing with my mom about something big. And really it's something that's related to my life. She thinks she knows what's best for me. Okay, I disagree. Tried to talk it out, tried to see eye to eye. It's just like not going anywhere. She's committed to being wrong about me. And I was committed for a long time to correcting her.
Mm.
And she would even kind of suggest things like, this is going to change our relationship if you don't want to kind of do the thing that I would prefer you to do. And I was talking to my therapist about that. And I had a moment of clarity where I was like, maybe our relationship should change. Like, if the relationship that she wants with me is one where I just like blindly do what she thinks I should do, that's not the relationship I want with her. Maybe it should
Wow.
change. So
Wow.
that was kind of a threat. And I turned it into a like, yeah, okay, you're right.
Yeah.
And I think that still is hard. Like, and I'm still not doing it all the time and not sticking to that all the time. But if you can find those moments of like self assuredness or empowerment or clarity of like, yeah, okay, if that's what you expect our relationship to look like, then I guess it does need to look different. I guess the repercussions of this, while not fun or easy, are maybe where we need to go.
That's
Um,
amazing.
that's a game changer mentally. And I think the other thing that goes along with that that I've been working on with my therapist is like, okay, how do you actually put that into practice? You
Hmm.
could keep going in circles with this person. You could keep debating them and having the conversations and saying, you know, how are you feeling? This is how I'm feeling. This is why you're misunderstanding me. No, it's not that. It's this, blah, 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 blah. Sending the emails, having the phone calls, having the arguments, whatever. Or you could just stop playing. And like something that I'm really trying to do, and it's really fucking hard, is to just stop playing. Like,
Yeah.
okay, you're committed to this narrative about me. I've tried to talk to you in a way that feels like loving and appropriate and respectful. You're not getting it. You want to keep doing this, and I don't want to anymore. I've accepted that maybe our relationship needs to look a little bit different. I don't know if you've accepted that yet, but like, what's the next step? It's me just s- stopping, like not stopping the relationship, but stopping the pattern that it's been in, stopping
Hmm.
the debate about these topics, stopping what it looked like then and moving towards what it will look like now. And yeah, it's not it's not fun or pretty or easy, but it is like the change that I think will end up either putting you in a more peaceful place or maybe even influencing the other person if it is somebody who you still want to have a close relationship with, to see like, oh, okay, this is what it's going to be now. I have to maybe show up a little bit differently. um so yeah, for what it's worth,
Dude,
that's the
enormous.
that's the
Yes,
the
that's the
kibosh or
example.
whatever. Yeah.
I think because that's about as intimate as it can get. And that's like as
Yeah.
severe as the consequences can get. One of those closest relationships in your life that you love and you want to keep. And it's really like it actually ends up being, I think, what you're describing, the way I relate to it, is like an enabling dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a broken system, and you're trying to achieve this ideal end goal through a system that's broken, and you keep
Yes.
playing by the rules of the broken system. And the only way to maybe make something different, it might not be ideal, might not be a fucking Cinderella story, but the only way to get a different result is to like step out of the system. And there'll probably be huge friction. There probably won't be talking. It'll probably be extremely uncomfortable. And that's why you kept staying in the system, because like
Yeah.
in the immediate, it's a little more comfortable to do the enabling dynamic where, okay, I'll change my whole career, or I'll change my whole belief system, or I'll change my whole relationship, or I'll change where I live or who I marry to suit you so that things could be okay. If someone's really treating you that way, there's going to be like a next thing. There's going to be a
Yeah.
next thing with them
Yes.
too. So
Yes.
it's
Yes.
enabling so that they never have to stop, they never have to consider it. Um, and it doesn't, stepping out of the system doesn't mean that they'll change. It definitely doesn't. But that's where you get like a little more peace for yourself. And also, I would guess there's grief, like something dies.
Yes. Yes. Correct.
I'm not saying it's like immediate enlightenment, like there's literal grief, the death of something. Um, and you're not really choosing between, there's not really, it's like there's not an option to choose the relationship the way you originally wanted it. That doesn't exist. That option doesn't exist. So what else do you want to do? The other
Right.
thing that my therapist said, oh wait, I did want to say the idea of your mom or whoever being like, well, if you're committed to this choice, it's going to change our relationship. As is a funny way to spin it, as opposed to like your reaction, your way of engaging with me is going to change our relationship. Like
Mm.
my choice isn't affecting any of my other relationships, you
Well,
know?
that's because my reaction, that's because that can't be said about,
Yeah.
oh, you mean the other person's reaction.
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
sorry,
yeah, yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, their reaction, the parent or whoever being like,
Yes.
"Well, this is going to change
No,
us." It's like,
totally.
okay,
You're choosing
this
that.
choice
That's
I'm making, it's not ruining my best friendship or my partnership or my
right.
relationship with my dad. Like, how are you sure?
It's a false choice. It's a
Narrative,
false
totally.
narrative of like, yeah, you're choosing this thing and that means it changes us. Like, okay, if this thing over here that is in my life changes over here what our relationship is, that's because you're choosing for it to change.
Yeah, take
Not
some fucking
I'm
ownership.
choosing this thing over here. That doesn't
Yeah.
mean I'm choosing, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, totally, totally. And it's, and like I think another thing that makes it really hard when it's with parents is that um they're in a different generation. They don't always have the emotional like awareness and language, I think, to really like have these conversations in the same way that our generation, a highly therapied, like for better or worse, more able to express and talk about our emotions generation um, is able to show up. And so I have to extend grace as well. Like I try to really understand that.
Sure.
But yeah, there's so many factors that make it really hard when it's a parent. And I do think and hope, and so far am like being able to, still have those relationships and still show love to my parents and also not kind of like appease just because I want them to like me.
It's so
And
hard.
they do, and they like me and they love me and whatever, but like on certain topics we really see things differently, and I'm choosing to be done with that like back and forth. And yeah, there's so many reasons why that's hard, and also it's just the fucking best thing for everyone. So I see you if you're dealing with that. And yeah, I don't know. There's not more I feel like I can say about it right now, but I think we're doing the right thing.
That's a big one, Jess. That's a fucking huge one. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know that's like a big tectonic shift in your world.
Yeah.
One thing that has kind of motivated me a little bit, um, in the relationship I shared about, it feels like, and I think this will help. I hope this helps people. In the relationship I shared about, it feels like the only option at this point is to let myself be more removed from this person's life,
Mm-hmm.
to let there be space. Maybe it's temporary. I really don't want it to be long term, but I don't feel like it's all up to me. But being together does not feel nice. It's not,
Yep.
it's nasty, it's difficult, it's not progressing. The communication doesn't seem to have helped. I feel like I'm running out of options other than to let there be more space. And that's really hard for me to do because I don't want this person to have to feel the lack of me. Like, I don't want
Mm.
that. Not that I'm so fucking great, but like they do love me and they want to keep me,
Mm-hmm.
actually are kind of possessive of me. And I don't want to subject them to losing a bit of a relationship. Like that makes me so sad for them because I know it will make them sad and I know it will be painful. And so part of it is like, I'm working so hard to make sure that this person doesn't have to feel pain, working so
Yes.
hard to make sure that this person doesn't have to feel consequences for their behavior. Um, and my therapist would say, like, I don't know, I'd never heard codependence defined this way. I've always known I struggle with codependent dynamics, but she was like, codependence is working really hard to ensure somebody never has to feel pain.
Yep.
I do that in so many relationships, definitely in this one. And she also added um, that, you know, usually the only time people make a change, if they're capable of a change, a big one, a hard one, they usually only do it kicking and screaming. They don't usually do it
Interesting.
because you had a chill
And
conversation
because it's like fun and like,
or
oh
because it's
yeah, we'll just
fun
do this now.
or
Great.
because they were enlightened or because you communicated. They usually do it kicking and fucking screaming, myself included. That's when we all make giant changes, is like you have hit the wall enough times that you are forced to change this thing that's really hard for you to change. It doesn't mean people will, but when that does happen, that's basically the scenario.
Yep.
So both of those things I feel like really helped me in a dynamic where I'm like, I think what's keeping me enabling the the dynamic is that I don't want them to have to feel pain. And I don't know, that was actually a little bit of a motivator for me to be like, A, it's okay for people to feel pain. The people you love will feel pain regardless of whatever you do. That's a part
Yep.
of life. You're going to feel it too. And that change can come in those moments specifically. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was like such an unlock when I'll never forget being in my therapist's office like 6 years ago in DC, 6, 7 years ago, and talking about a different situation with my mom, but kind of like thematically related. And talking to my therapist about how, like, well, if I did that, I would upset her, or like if I did
Yeah.
that, she would react in this way, and I don't want her to feel that way. And just like the unlock of like, and I know that people debate this, but I really believe in it at its core. It doesn't warrant being a bad, mean person, which I think everybody knows I'm not. But like, you don't make someone feel how they feel. You're not responsible for other people's feelings. They feel what they feel, and that's allowed. And it might be a reaction to you, but it's not like I put that in them and
Mm-hmm.
I'm responsible, or I'm responsible to keep it from them. And I think many of us grow up feeling, whether it's like directly something we're taught or told, or something that we just absorb through little signals, but feeling like we're responsible for our parents, and maybe even moms and daughters, I think specifically have this
Yeah.
dynamic of like we're responsible for how they feel.
Yeah. To
We're
make sure they
responsible
never
if they're
feel
upset.
upset. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Also,
not
this
wanting to upset
idea,
them, not wanting, like, you grow up
yes.
like, oh, I did something bad and my parents are upset and I'm in trouble now. Like,
Yeah.
so breaking that and just realizing, like, oh, I'm not responsible if she's upset by this thing, but it's something I did. I don't, it's like a weird thing because you're like, but it's something I say
Yeah.
and then she gets upset. So how is that not on me?
I get how the language of that feels tricky. Yeah, like you can't make someone feel some way. I think what hit me more, I think at one point a therapist was like, it's funny how you handle all kinds of pain and being upset and stress and whatever, but you act like nobody else can handle that. You're acting like
Yes.
nobody. It's like, it's not that, maybe I will say something that makes you upset or however you want to define that. But like the idea that nobody else can handle being upset or like
Right.
nobody else can handle not getting what they want. I handle not getting what I want all the fucking time. And this, yeah, I think that's the codependent attitude, is like nobody other than me can
Mm-hmm.
handle feeling pain. Fucking yeah, they can. And they're doing it all day long. Everybody is having experienced that in their life. But then I'm out here acting like nobody else can fucking hang.
Right.
Yes, they
Like,
can.
you really think you're so much smarter than everybody. Like,
Yeah.
there's a similar, well, there's a similar thing that I was told once, or I maybe I heard it on a podcast of like, I go through these spirals that I talked about last week of being like, maybe I'm not funny. Maybe I don't like help anyone or make anyone laugh. And the response to that, that I find effective is like, you really think that like you've just been fooling everybody for this long? You really think
Yeah,
you're
you
smarter
mastermind.
than everyone else, that you've like tricked them into liking you and thinking you're funny and thinking that you're a good person to have in their life, and then like that's all been a lie? Like that's kind of a weird way to flip imposter syndrome on its head, is like
Yeah,
you
that's funny.
that's actually means that you think that you're better than everyone because you've been tricking them this whole time. Like, who the fuck do you think you are? And I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's a
So
good.
I,
I like
you
that
know, like
you defeating imposter syndrome by saying, "Who the fuck do you think you
yeah,
are?" It never
really,
stops.
imposter syndrome is a little bit of
An
narcissism in a
ego
weird
trip.
way.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
all narcissism. It
Yeah.
all is.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
Feels
Well,
so
that
good to be healed out here.
I know. My brain is kind of like there's a lot of synapses firing right now. You know what I mean?
A lot of synapses dying too.
True, 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 true. But at least we're
Gotcha.
using the scientific terms.
That's true.
Um, can I tell you a
Let's
really little quick
please.
thing?
Yes, please let it be stupid. Please tell me something stupid.
It's maybe not stupid enough, but it depends on
Oh,
what your opinion is of this. So
okay. Okay.
I on Thursday night I went and met a friend from my gym at this like neighborhood bar, and they had a tarot reader there, and it was really not busy, and the tarot reader seemed free and whatever. Like nobody was really in the space for some reason. And so because of that, it made it like more approachable to potentially go get my tarot read, and I've never done that before. And I don't really know how I feel about it, and it kind of makes me nervous in a weird way. Like, what if they tell me that I'm going to die tomorrow or something?
Yeah.
But I that's also because I have a lack of understanding of like what exactly it is. Anyway, so I like recognize that I don't know. There's like people get really like fucking touchy when it's
That's funny.
about like psychic stuff, and like some
Touchy if
people
you
are like,
misunderstand it or something.
well, just everybody has a different interpretation of like how
Totally.
seriously to take it. And
Sounds like a personal fucking opinion, y'all. Sounds like a
right,
personal fucking
but
opinion.
they're strong opinions anyway.
Ugh.
This because he was free, literally because there was no line. I think that's the only reason that I decided to do it. And I
Yeah.
sat down and got my tarot read, and this guy was really sweet, and he was like, okay, have a question in the back of your mind while I pull these cards for you. Don't tell me what it is, but just hold it in the back of your mind, and hopefully what I pull will like resonate for that. And so the question I decided to put in my mind was kind of like, am I on the right path? And specifically when it comes to the podcast and, this type of work, like, am I heading where I want to be heading with it?
Ugh, I could answer that for you, but go
I
on.
mean, and I kind of was like, I'm choosing this as opposed to other topics in my life
No, I
because this
know.
is an easy yes.
Okay,
No, but I
okay.
was like, whatever. This is like a good thing that I feel like if he
Totally.
says something that I don't want to hear, I'm not going to be
That I
heartbroken the
won't
way that I
believe.
would with like a relationship or something.
Basically, if he said something I don't want to hear, then I don't believe in psychics. And this was just like a funny thing I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the easy thing to throw out there because it's working. But
Cool.
literally, what happened? Okay.
Oh my
So,
god.
oh my God, they
Oh
pull
my
three
god.
cards.
Oh my god, I'm so scared. What happened?
It's like past, present, and future cards that he pulls.
Okay. Okay.
The past one was something about like continuing to do something over and over and like hitting, like running into a wall every time and getting really exhausted and like not knowing the way out and almost like avoiding the way out for a long time.
Cool.
The middle card. So I'm like, yeah, that I
So
can apply that to lots of different things.
ship it.
The middle one, he goes, but
Yeah.
now you have taken that leap and you're doing something you've always wanted to do. And it seems like maybe it opens you up to like other people's opinions a lot.
Oh,
Um,
the comment
but
section.
right. And I'm just like, wow, I'm literally like amazed at every word he's saying. And then he goes, but you're not going to be for everyone. And so you
Shut
just,
the front door. Shut
I,
the front door.
I wish I was recording it. I am not lying. Bible, as the Kardashians would say. I swear on my unborn child that I'll never have.
Did you guys kiss?
And then he did the last one and whatever. It was something else. But like,
It was something else. Yeah,
I
you
don't even
stopped listening
remember. I
after
like
that. You
blacked
stopped
out
listening.
after that. And then at the end, I was like, that was amazing. You will not believe what you just did. And I got to tell him, like, I started a podcast a year ago and I've always wanted to do it. And it's actually like growing. And the name of it is not for everyone. And you said those words in a sentence. And he
Wow.
lost his mind. He said he was like newer to this. And that was so like affirming and exciting for him. And it was
Oh,
really cute. And I believe in everything now. Tarot, psychics, the moon,
the
which I
moon.
already believed in the moon,
I
but
never believed there was a moon before.
I've believed it this whole time.
Well, you're
So
a woman of faith.
catch up.
Catch up. Okay, I have to
Isn't
tell you
that
something.
cool?
That's the coolest thing I've ever heard.
Mm-hmm.
That's the coolest thing I've ever heard. I feel really good about that.
Thank you so
And
much.
happy for that guy.
I know. That's how I felt. I was like, I made his day.
Yeah, I'm glad that I gave this to you. That would be a cool thing to do as like an act of beauty to the world, is to just like go see psychics and whatever they say make them feel really good about it.
That's actually brilliant.
My dad once told me, first of all, how rare to see a male psychic. I feel like I've only ever seen women psychics or tarot or whatever.
I would venture to say he was probably gay and like he was just
That
very
still makes him a
cute
man.
and flamboyant.
I don't know how to break this to you, but that's still a man.
I know.
Still a man.
But you know what I mean? Like he was just a cute.
I
He was
know.
like, if I said
Yeah.
like, "Oh my god, thanks, girl,"
Totally.
he would have been down for me to
He
say that to him.
he wasn't in like Hell's Angels doing like a tarot reading. That sounds fucking fun to me though. But what recently, my funniest story with a psychic, I had like a dad date. I went out like got lunch with my dad. And I don't know how we are talking about it. We walked by some psychic place and I was like, "Ooh, do you ever go and do like psychic readings? I think they're fun to do." And he was like, "Yeah, actually, one time in like my 20s, I went and I saw this woman and she told me that I was going to have a serious accident and die at middle age." And I was like, "Lol, that's like not that's a bold statement for them to say it, like a $10, palm reading." I was like, did it ever like mess with you or anything? Just thinking like, ha ha ha, like you brush it off if whatever you don't like it. Like half the time. I've gone to some that are great. I've gone to some that were such scams.
That's
And I
too
was like, ha ha
specific.
ha. I was so specific. I almost respect it. And I was like, "Did you ever like think about it? Did it ever bother you?" And he was like, "Every single day of my life."
Oh my god. Was he being funny in the way your dad is kind of deadpan sometimes? He was like really troubled by it.
Yeah, he was just really troubled by it. I was like, "Oh, well, you made it past, so I guess we can talk about it now."
Well, I guess that's the dip. Not to say this is gonna happen to your dad,
Shit,
fucking
Jess.
knocking on wood, but like, what is midlife really?
Okay. Well, midlife, I would assume, is halfway through your life, and so if he dies now, that will be the end of his life. So,
Well, exactly. So midlife would have been when he was 30,
or middle
and
age, I guess.
he had no idea it was midlife until. Do you know what I mean? People always talk about midlife
I know what you mean.
crises, and I'm like, you don't know
It
what
depends how
midlife
long
is.
you live. Okay, Jess, this is for another time. I gotta tell you something. I have to go to the
Okay.
bathroom so bad. I have to leave. I don't have
Okay,
time
that's
to figure
fine. I
out
have
what
to go
age
get my
we
table
are.
at the Ravens bar.
Okay.
Send us home, baby.
Wow, this has been Not For Everyone. We're psychics and we're scientists. You can find us on Instagram, Not For Everyone Pod with the number 4. Jessica is on Instagram at JZ Oh my god, I called you Jessica. I haven't called you that in so long.
I accept.
Ooh, I'm on YouTube at Caroline Winkler. We're both broken people, but we're working on it, and we will never stop referencing our therapists. And that's something you just have to fucking accept. Okay?
This podcast is really just our therapists talking through us.
Yes.
Like psychics do.
I love my therapist, but honestly, I think I'm funnier than her. So that's why I'm going to keep doing this.
Yeah. I mean, that's the reason I keep going to therapy, is to make her laugh.
Yeah. I've started writing my therapy sessions as a write-off. I'm like, this is material. It's a tax, it's a business write-off for me. I don't think it's legal, but whatever.
Okay. I'll try.
Okay. See you later, bitch.
Bye.